In this Pacha-Kacha, we will be exploring the intersections between our major, political science, and psychology. While the average person would not readily associate politics and psychology, the two relate in significant ways. If you could understand the way your opponent thought, wouldn't you want to know what they were thinking? The political atmosphere in the United States has been plagued by polarization between the two major parties, Democrats and Republicans, who have given up on understanding each other and making compromise. Political psychology seeks to understand how these breaks in understanding have become the norm. Research has suggested that different political ideologies have different ways of thinking and reacting to certain situations. This knowledge is useful for understanding how polarization has become so prevalent and why it may be impossible to eradicate. Political psychology centers on understanding how leaders and ordinary citizens make political judgments and the consequences these have for the broader political system. The brain is analyzed to see how certain parts of the brain are responsible for certain political affiliations. While the roots of political psychology can be traced back to France in 1871, its study in an academic setting has only begun in recent years. French ethnologist Adolphe Bastien coined the term political psychology. Notable American pioneers in the field include Harold Laswell, Louis Léon Thurston, and George Gallup. George Gallup is most known for his innovative Gallup poll, which was marketed as a reliable index of voters' mood. From 1936 onward, no election was complete without referencing Gallup poll predictions of voter opinion. These polls are essential to determine the trajectory of political campaigns, with many campaigns paying millions of dollars to see how effective their advertisements are in gaining support. Sigmund Freud also made significant contributions in developing the field of political psychology. Through his theories about the subconscious mind, political psychologists gain perspective on how political figures make important decisions and how voters decide on the best candidate. He proposed that decisions are made based on the interactions of the id, ego, and superego, suggesting that not all political decisions are made purely in the conscious mind. Political campaigns have started putting significant weight behind the findings of political psychologists. Political psychologists are able to predict voting patterns based on a variety of defining characteristics, as well as the effectiveness of political ads on undecided and independent voters. Campaigns can use this information to attract votes from a variety of different demographics. In a 2005 study led by Dr. AMYGDALA, results showed that women were more likely to support compassionate policies like reducing the gap between the rich and poor, but were also more likely to support morally conservative policies like the opposition to the legalization of marijuana. The researchers suggest that this difference between men and women is a result of women's status disadvantages and family obligations. Voters are often discouraged from voting in a manner not dissimilar from operant conditioning. Those who vote for the losing candidate are far less likely to vote in the next election, while those who vote for the winning candidate are more likely to vote. These positive and negative consequences to voting explain why there is only 50% voter turnout. Campaigns are more likely to draw on negative emotions like fear and anger rather than positive emotions because negative emotions are more likely to be remembered. We see many negative campaign ads because of this, but negative emotions can also fuel voters to go to the polls. Dr. Scott AIDELMAN is an associate professor at the University of Arkansas with a PhD in social psychology from the University of Kansas. He studies the social cognitive dimensions of political attitudes, status quo preference, social change, moral perception, and prejudice. He also does research on identity management, the relationship between personal and social identity, and stereotyping of self and others. In his first study, he put participants in slightly stressful situations, or where their cognitive functions would otherwise be diminished, like intoxication. Without any regard to their stated political identification, those who were drugged tended to agree more with conservative ideology. The suspected cause is the lack of cognitive functioning required to support the status quo. The more blood alcohol level increased, the more people tended to endorse conservative ideology. In his second study, he put participants under cognitive load, or high levels of information all at once, and they then reported more conservative attitudes. Because cognitive load depletes available mental resources, participants were left to draw more heavily on thinking that was easy and efficient. The researchers maintain that this thinking promotes political conservatism. Cognitive load also produced a corresponding shift in liberal attitudes. When under load, participants' endorsement of political liberalism decreased. In the third study, he disrupted participant thought processes by rapid presentation of words and phrases related to political conservatism, which then increased endorsement of the terms presented. Endorsement of terms related to political liberalism was not affected by time pressure. Time pressure forces reliance on information processing that is quick and efficient. Study 3 joins Studies 1 and 2 in suggesting that this type of thinking promotes conservative ideology. Douglas R. Oxley is an associate professor of public policy at the University of Wyoming, with a PhD from the University of Nebraska. He has 20 years of research experience with interests that include individual behavior in the context of public policy process and the influence of neurological and physical factors on public decision-making. Dr. Oxley is also an amateur vintner. Dr. Oxley conducted research that found that conservatives tend to have more harsh and quick reactions to threatening stimuli. They tracked physical reactions like perspiration and eye movement and scared participants with a combination of white noise and unpleasant images. Researchers found a correlation between physiological responses to threat and political attitudes, where more conservative participants showed greater response to perceived threats. This correlation between threat response and political affiliation may be a result of environmental factors which shaped how their initial political opinions were formed. Researchers hypothesize that the amygdala is crucial in shaping responses to socially threatening images and may be connected to political predispositions. Genetics seem to play a large role in what political dispositions one will grow to have. Another study has found that liberals tend to have a larger anterior cingulate cortex, which correlates with a larger tolerance to uncertainty, while conservatives have a larger right amygdala, which correlates with more sensitivity to fear. Conservatives react more harshly to situations that are unknown, while liberals are more likely to wait for the possible threat to take shape before acting. While Democrats and Republicans have fundamentally different ways of thinking and approaching public policy, the key to reducing polarization between the two will always be compromise. Voters should also be aware of targeting on behalf of both parties and make decisions based on facts rather than emotion. The study of politics and psychology in tandem will continue to provide valuable information on our political climate and what we can do to improve it.